What if everything you have been told about hustle, grind, and 24/7 productivity is slowly killing your potential? What if the very thing you believe is driving you forward is actually the weight dragging you down? Every day you are bombarded with mantras like no days off, sleep is for the weak, and rise and grind. You see entrepreneurs flexing 16-hour workdays. You hear influencers preaching about burning the midnight oil. Somewhere deep inside, you start to believe that if you are not hustling, you are falling behind. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. Hustle culture is not about excellence. It is about fear. Fear of being average. Fear of irrelevance. Fear of sitting still long enough to face what is really going on inside. Because if you slow down, if you stop, even for a moment, what will you hear? The noise you are trying to drown out, the voice that whispers you are not enough unless you are achieving. That voice is the real enemy. And hustle culture gives you the perfect excuse to avoid confronting it. It is not a mindset of strength. It is a survival tactic. You are not hustling because you are ambitious. You are hustling because you are afraid. Afraid of being seen as lazy. Afraid of losing momentum. Afraid that if you rest, the world will forget you. But let me ask you this. What is the cost of that fear? Sleep, relationships, health, identity. At some point, you stop working toward a dream and start working to escape a nightmare. You become addicted to movement, obsessed with output, allergic to stillness. But productivity without purpose is just motion. And motion without meaning is madness. If you are grinding every day, but your soul is eroding, that is not success. That is self-destruction, dressed up as ambition.
This is not a video about being lazy. This is not a glorification of doing nothing. This is about something deeper.
This is a warning, because hustle culture does not make you successful, it makes you sick. It burns your brain. It numbs your heart. It convinces you that your worth is tied to your workload. But real power does not come from burning out. It comes from doing deep, focused, intentional work. It comes from knowing when to move and when to be still. It comes from building a life, not just a resume. So in this video, we are going to expose the dark side of hustle culture. Not to criticize ambition, but to free it from the chains of self-destruction. Because the truth is, the people who win in the long run are not the ones who run the fastest. They are the ones who run the smartest. Now let us begin. Why do you hustle? Not on the surface, not the scripted answer. But deep down, is it really about ambition or about something else? Dr. Gabor once said, "We live in a society that rewards people for being disconnected from themselves." That is the perfect description of hustle culture. It does not reward clarity. It rewards noise. It does not reward peace. It rewards pressure. It does not reward depth. It rewards speed. And it hijacks your mind by targeting your most vulnerable psychological need, the need to feel worthy. From the moment we are born, we crave love. We crave approval. We crave the look in someone's eyes that says, "You matter." But when we grow up in environments where worth was conditional on grades, on obedience, on performance, we start to internalize a toxic rule. I am only valuable when I am producing something. So what happens? We chase achievement, not for the joy of growth, but for the fear of being nothing without it. We start believing that rest is laziness, that slowing down is failure. That exhaustion is evidence of excellence. Okay, but that is not excellence. That is trauma. That is unhealed childhood pain disguised as ambition. Hustle culture gives that trauma a purpose. It wraps your wounds in productivity and says, "Keep going, you're doing great." It exploits the fear of inadequacy, and it does it with perfect timing. You open Instagram and see someone your age already richer, fitter, happier. You log on to LinkedIn and see another peer promoted. You walk past your mirror and think, "I am behind."
Oh.
So you grind harder, not because it feels good, but because the silence feels worse. Because if you stop, the fear catches up.
Oh.
And this is where dopamine comes in. Every time you check off a task, post a win, or hit a milestone, your brain gets a spike of dopamine. Quick hit of "I am enough." But that dopamine fades fast, so you chase it again. Like any addiction, it starts with one hit, then more, then more. You are not working with intention, you are working for the high. You go from building a life to building a treadmill, and that treadmill never turns off. This is not just a metaphor. This is neuroscience. Stanford professor Dr. Anna Lemje, in her research on dopamine, explains that the more you pursue pleasure through repeated stimulation, the more your brain requires that stimulation just to feel normal. Hustle becomes a drug. You are no longer working to achieve. You are working to survive your own brain chemistry. And here's the paradox. The more you hustle, the less fulfilled you feel. Because real fulfillment does not come from movement. It comes from meaning. But meaning is slow. Meaning requires reflection. And reflection requires stillness. Stillness is where the truth speaks. But hustle culture drowns that voice out. Maslow's hierarchy of needs helps us understand this. At the bottom of the pyramid is survival food, shelter, safety. At the top is self-actualization, becoming the fullest version of yourself. But hustle culture traps people at the bottom. It makes them believe that their survival depends on being impressive non-stop. Approval becomes the new oxygen. You do not work to grow, you work to be seen. So you trade your peace for performance, your purpose for productivity, your soul for status. But here's what they never tell you. No amount of likes, followers, or income will heal the part of you that believes you are not enough without them. Because hustle is not the cause, it is the symptom. And as long as you treat the symptom, you will never get better. You will keep burning out and calling it progress. You will keep grinding and calling it glory. You will keep suffering and calling it success. But when you finally slow down, and you look honestly at what drives you, you will see the truth. You were never lazy. You were never unmotivated. You were wounded. And the hustle was just your way of coping. The cure is not to stop working. It is to start working for the right reasons. Work with intention. Not to escape fear, but to express purpose. Work with discipline. Not to numb the pain, but to channel it into something real. Because when you finally disconnect your worth from your workload, the chains fall off. And what is left is not weakness. What is left is power. You do not need to hustle to prove your worth. You are already worthy. Now, build something from that place, not from fear. Let us move on. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you will do." But hustle culture twisted that. You are no longer what you do. You're only what you keep doing, endlessly, without pause. And if you stop even for a breath, you disappear. This is toxic productivity, and it is not obvious at first. It wears a mask. It looks like ambition. It sounds like discipline. Yet beneath the surface, it is rot. It is burnout, slowly corroding your identity while you call it growth. Let me tell you a story. A young man, 22 years old, launches a YouTube channel. He is passionate, creative, full of ideas. He uploads his first video, and it flops. No views, no feedback. But he is determined. So he tries again. He sets a goal. One video every day, no matter what. The algorithm starts to notice. He gains subscribers, then more. Comments roll in. People start saying, "You are inspiring. You are going to make it." And for 2 years straight, he does not miss a day. No birthdays, no breaks, no vacations, no nights off. Just filming, editing, uploading. Then one morning he wakes up, and it hits him. He no longer knows who he is when he is not performing, not creating, not uploading, not chasing views. His joy is gone. His creativity is dry. His relationships are cracked. His health is failing. And worst of all, he is afraid to stop. Because if he rests, the algorithm forgets him. The audience moves on. Identity he built disappears. That is not ambition. That is imprisonment. Burnout does not always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like high performance, just with no soul behind it. You show up, you deliver, you keep smiling. But inside, you are empty. You are pushing a broken engine with a forced smile. Because hustle culture taught you that rest is weakness, that breaks are for losers, that slowing down means you are being overtaken. So you punish yourself. You skip sleep. You skip meals. You sacrifice everything that makes you human for a version of success that barely satisfies. But the truth is, real success does not destroy the person chasing it. Toxic productivity tells you to burn out and then blames you when you do. It rewards self-neglect and celebrates dysfunction. You get praised not for how well you work, but how much you suffer doing it. You get applause not for your brilliance, but for your pain. This lie is reinforced everywhere. On social media, people romanticize the grind. Rise and grind. Sleep is for the weak. Hustle until your haters ask if you are hiring. They wear exhaustion like a trophy, as if the goal is not impact but collapse. And this constant pressure destroys your brain. A Stanford study found that once you pass 50 hours of work per week, your productivity begins to fall sharply. After 55 hours, it drops off a cliff. At 70 hours a week, the extra 15 hours produce exactly zero gain. But hustle culture does not care. It does not care if your output is good, just that it is non-stop. It does not care if you are creative, just that you never miss a day. It does not care if you are alive, just that you perform. This is how you end up grinding yourself into dust and calling it legacy. You are not building an empire. You are burning your life for temporary applause. And one day, you wake up successful on paper, empty in soul. You do not laugh the same. You do not think the same. You do not recognize yourself in the mirror. Because your identity became your output. Because your worth was measured by your productivity. But there is a truth that hustle culture hides. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to be more than what you produce. And rest is not the enemy of ambition. It is the fuel for it. Every artist, every athlete, every high performer who sustains their craft protects their rest like gold. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It is a sign you left yourself behind. So if you feel tired, not just physically, but spiritually tired, pay attention. You might not be lazy. You might not be unmotivated. You might just be buried under the weight of toxic productivity. And the first step back is to stop lying to yourself. You are not a machine. You are not a robot. You are a human being. And the human soul was not designed for constant output. It was designed for depth, for rhythm, for seasons. You are allowed to slow down, reflect, and reconnect to your why. Because if you do not, you'll wake up successful and wonder why you still feel like a failure. The world does not need more hustle. It needs more people awake. Awake to their limits. Awake to their truth. Awake to what actually matters. Because you do not need to do more. You need to live more. Next, let us talk about the illusion of progress. How hustle can fool you into thinking you are getting somewhere when you are actually going in circles. James Clear once said, "Motion is not progress." But hustle culture never makes that distinction. It worships motion for motion's sake. Movement becomes the idol. Activity becomes identity. The moment you pause, you feel like you are failing. But here is the brutal truth. Many people are not hustling toward a goal. They are running from themselves. Hustle becomes escapism. Busyness becomes anesthesia. Productivity becomes the drug we use to avoid silence. Because silence is where the real questions live. Who am I without my work? What do I actually value? What pain am I hiding behind my to-do list? Let me tell you a story. A tech startup founder, celebrated for scaling his company to millions, was interviewed for a podcast. The host asked him, "What are you most afraid of?" He paused. Then he answered, "Not failure, not losing money, not competition." He said, "I am afraid of stillness. I am terrified of sitting in a room with no distractions, no emails, no meetings, no deadlines, just my own thoughts, because I have no idea what I might hear." That is the paradox of hustle. It makes you feel powerful while keeping you disconnected from your own truth. You stay busy enough that you never have to face the emptiness underneath. You sprint from project to project, not because you are inspired, but because you are scared of stopping. Because stopping would mean confronting the voice inside that says, "Is this all there is?" And society praises you for this. People admire your drive. They call you a machine. They say you are crushing it. But they do not know you are using your calendar as a shield. They do not know you are drowning in motion, so you never have to deal with emotion. They do not know that your hustle is not ambition, it is avoidance. The more you run, the deeper the hole gets. Because here is the truth. You can escape the world, but you can never escape yourself. Wherever you go, there you are. And if you keep building without ever looking inward, you are just decorating a prison cell. Stillness is uncomfortable, yes, but it is also sacred. It is in stillness that you hear what actually matters. It is in stillness that you separate noise from truth. It is in stillness that the ego dissolves and the soul starts speaking. But hustle trains you to fear silence. It convinces you that if you are not doing something, you are losing. It tells you that rest is weakness. Reflection is indulgence. Quiet is failure. So you fill your schedule with tasks that mean nothing. You chase metrics that never fulfill. You climb ladders you secretly hate, just to avoid the discomfort of being alone with yourself. But what if you faced that discomfort? What if you stopped running? What if instead of asking, what should I do next, you asked, what have I been avoiding? That question changes everything. Because maybe the problem is not that you are not doing enough. Maybe the problem is that you are doing too much of the wrong thing. Hustle can hide your calling. Hustle can numb your intuition. Hustle can drown your purpose in a flood of checklists and deadlines. And when the noise dies down, you might realize you have been chasing approval, not meaning. You have been addicted to validation, not vision. The deepest truth is this: silence is not the enemy. It is the mirror. It shows you who you really are, beyond the metrics, beyond the achievements, beyond the brand. And yes, that mirror is scary, but it is also your only path to clarity. Real success does not come from more doing. It comes from deeper being. You must know who you are before you build. You must face your void before you try to fill it with hustle. Because if you do not, you will wake up successful and feel nothing. The applause will fade. The metrics will shift. The grind will get old. And you'll be left with a terrifying question. Why did I build all this? So pause. Sit with the discomfort. And listen to what your silence is trying to say. Stop running. Because the self you are avoiding, it might be the key to everything you were chasing. Viktor Frankl once said, when a person cannot find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. But in hustle culture, it is not pleasure people chase, it is productivity. Constant output becomes the distraction. And meaning gets lost in the noise of deadlines, notifications, and goals that never end. The truth is, many people today have confused work with worth. Your value is measured by your output. Your identity becomes what you do, not who you are. And when that identity collapses, so does your sense of self. This is not just philosophy, it is deadly. In Japan, they have a word for it, karoshi. It literally means death by overwork. Every year, thousands of people collapse at their desks, suffer heart failure, or commit suicide because the pressure to perform became unbearable. These are not isolated tragedies. They are the logical end of a culture that equates working harder with being better. In hustle culture, rest is a sign. Reflection is seen as laziness. Slowing down as weakness. People push past exhaustion. They wear burnout like a badge of honor. Slowly, they disappear beneath their job titles. There is a psychological name for this. It is called identity foreclosure. It happens when someone commits to an identity without exploring who they really are. And hustle culture demands that foreclosure. You are expected to become the grinder, the operator, the founder, the content machine, and never question it. Your humanity gets buried beneath hashtags. Your soul gets repackaged as a productivity system. You do not live, you execute. You do not feel, you optimize. And the scariest part, people cheer for it. Society rewards you for becoming a shell. But meaning does not live in output. Meaning comes from alignment, purpose, self-awareness. It comes from knowing why you do what you do, not just how much you do. Hustle teaches you to skip that step. It says the why does not matter, just go faster. Just get results, just win. But here is the hidden cost. When your entire identity is built around performance, any failure becomes personal. You are no longer someone who failed. You are a failure. The machine broke down, and because you never built a self outside the machine, you have nothing left to fall back on. Let me give you a real-world example. A high-achieving entrepreneur once said, I have built 3 companies to 7 figures. But every time I succeed, I feel more hollow. Why? Because the hustle never let him define success for himself. He was chasing an identity that was never his to begin with, and that is the dangerous trick of hustle influencers. They sell grind like it is religion. They promise salvation through effort. But what they are really selling is addiction. Addiction to metrics. Addiction to comparison. Addiction to the illusion that one more hour, one more project, one more milestone will finally make you enough. But fulfillment does not come from excess. It comes from intention. And most people are too busy to ever ask themselves, what am I actually building? Without that question, your grind becomes a graveyard. You bury your creativity, you bury your joy, you bury your relationships. You sacrifice everything to the false god of productivity and wake up wondering why you feel so empty. You were never meant to be a machine. You were meant to be a meaning maker. But machines do not ask why. They just run out until they burn out. And in hustle culture, burnout is not seen as failure. It is seen as proof of commitment. That is how deep the sickness runs. You are praised for self-destruction, and anyone who pauses is seen as soft. But ask yourself this, what if the bravest thing you can do is stop? What if real strength is not grinding through pain, but having the courage to redefine success? Because here is the secret no one tells you. True meaning is not built on exhaustion. It is built on clarity. And clarity only comes when you slow down long enough to ask, who am I without the hustle? If you cannot answer that, then you are not free. You are owned by your output. And that is not success. That is slavery in disguise. So let us dismantle this illusion. You are not your productivity. You are not your KPIs. You are not your followers or your income or your calendar. You are something deeper. And if you never make time to find out what that is, no amount of hustle will ever satisfy you. It will just keep feeding a hunger that cannot be filled by more. Cal Newport once said, clarity about what matters provides clarity about what does not. In a world addicted to hustle, that clarity is radical, because it reveals a paradox, one that hustle culture does not want you to see. The real secret to success is not speed. It is depth. It is not about how much you do. It is about how well you do it. The people who win long-term are not the ones moving the fastest. They are the ones moving with purpose. This is the lie that hustle sells, that more effort equals more results. That if you are not constantly grinding, you are falling behind. Science and experience say otherwise. Productivity does not scale linearly. After a certain point, more hours mean worse output. More noise, more distraction, more burnout. So what actually works? Focused intensity, strategic stillness, deep work? Let me introduce you to the 4-hour rule. It is based on cognitive research showing that the human brain has a limited window of deep focus each day, typically no more than 4 hours. After that, quality drops fast. And yet, most people try to brute force 10, 12, sometimes 16 hours of work. But here's the twist. The highest performers, the real elites, do not work more. They work better. They protect their deep hours. They eliminate noise. And they produce results far beyond the grinders who never stop moving. Take the story of a quiet investor. He works for hours a day, no meetings, no social media, no hustle. But his returns beat those who work 80-hour weeks chasing every deal. Why? Because he moves with surgical precision. He does not waste energy. He does not confuse motion with progress. He thinks clearly. He acts intentionally. And he wins. This is what hustle culture misses. Frantic speed creates shallow work. Endless urgency kills creativity. When you are always reacting, you are never reflecting. When you are always doing, you stop thinking. You trade clarity for chaos. And the worst part, you start to feel proud of it. Confuse exhaustion for excellence. You wear your overwhelm like a trophy. But in reality, you are stuck in a loop, busy, but not better. Moving, but not mastering. Strategic stillness breaks that loop. It means creating space to think, not just act. It means cutting the non-essential so the essential gets your full power. This means protecting your attention like it is your most valuable asset, because it is. Deep work is not glamorous, is not loud. It does not give you dopamine hits every 5 seconds. But it is what builds legacies. It is what creates breakthroughs. It is what separates noise from greatness. Look at the patterns. The greatest thinkers, creators, and entrepreneurs in history did not sprint 24/7. They carved out silence. They disappeared from the noise. They structured their days around focus, not frenzy. Einstein took long walks. Steve Jobs meditated. Bill Gates took think weeks. These were not escapes from work. They were the source of their edge. Hustle tells you to fill every moment. Strategy tells you to guard your best ones. And in today's distracted world, that discipline is rare. Most people are trapped in reaction cycles. Scroll, check, reply, repeat. Their attention is scattered across 1,000 tasks, and they wonder why nothing sticks. Deep work changes that. It means saying no to everything except what matters most. It means building a life that supports clarity, not chaos. It means understanding this truth. Silence is not weakness. Slowness is not laziness. Stillness is not failure. In fact, in a world that never stops, stillness is rebellion. Intentionality is the new power. The ability to sit with your thoughts, to design your actions, to pursue fewer things, but with more force. This is not the sexy message. It will not trend on Twitter. It will not get you hustle points. But it will build a life you actually want to live, because it is rooted in sanity, in sustainability, in mastery. The alternative path is not easier. In fact, it is harder. It requires more discipline, more courage. But it frees you from the prison of performance. It allows you to create from vision, not desperation. And it gives you what hustle never can peace. This is your permission to slow down, not to slack off, but to sharpen your edge. This is your call to stop scattering your power and start focusing it like a laser, because the future does not belong to the most frantic. It belongs to the most focused. And if you build that focus, it tunes it with intention, you will win. Quietly, consistently, and on your own terms. If this message resonates, subscribe right now, because we are not here to glorify hustle. We are here to build a new kind of success. One rooted in clarity, depth, and discipline. This is the success paradox, and this is just the beginning.